Okay, so for our last perspective note, we're going to be doing a city street in 2-point perspective. Now make sure that you have your picture plane set up like so. You'll want your horizon line to be just a little below the middle of the entire page, or picture plane rather, and you'll want your vanishing points on either end. Extend your vectors and make sure that they intersect, especially around the center, because that is where we're going to start. So I'm going to take my highest point that is not going off the page, so that'll be right here. And I'm just going to bring a vertical down. Right about here. With that established, I will make my first building. Remember, you can turn your paper as needed to get that straight line that you want. If you don't have a ruler, or just don't trust yourself with a ruler to get the right line. Always draw towards your dominant hand. That will always give you a straighter line than doing it with anything else. Now, I'm not even going to establish anything on the building. First, I'm actually going to establish another building right next to it. As you see, everything that's on the left side is going towards this vanishing point over here. Everything on the right is going towards this vanishing point right here. But I make that first establishing shot here and here, my first building, so I know where my tops and bottoms are supposed to line up. Like so. I'm not going to deal with any shading yet. It's too soon for that. But now in this setup here, we can establish next our sidewalk. In this case, I'm going to be using this line here. And have it go up from here. The entire point of this is that you want your sidewalk to be perfectly aligned with your building. You're meant to get the now, just like we went over yesterday, unlike with a residential area, your sidewalk is going to go right up to the buildings. While we're at it, let's establish the edge of our sidewalk as well. Now, this is where we experience a change with how we have been doing our sidewalks up to now. And at one point, we've always used a horizontal line to establish each of our slabs. And I said to not use diagonal lines because they create an unnecessary lean on your streets. However, in this case, we don't use the horizontal lines. In 2-point, we are actually use diagonals. They just have to make sure they come from our vanishing points over here. So in which case, remember, you're doing this all lightly so they're easy to erase later. Remember to do this all lightly so you can easily erase afterwards. Mechanicals can work for this. I just tend not to rely on them since they're easy to break. I think I will put in another building because why not? Yeah, but you can't erase crayon. Or you can just work smarter, not harder, and not use a crayon. So right now we have our buildings established, we have set up our sidewalk, and we even have a road to go off of. So let's get to this point, and then we are going to start putting in the actual details of our street. Okay, now that we have our sidewalk and buildings established, let's start actually putting in some details in these buildings. So right from now, though these look like they could be large buildings, this is why we established our sidewalk next. The sense of scale, these buildings can't be that huge. So we can actually just establish a door, let's say right here. Nice thing why I had so many lines made. Like so. Now, what's happened with a lot of buildings lately, well, really for the last decade, is that we don't have, say, a lot of rounded top door frames or like a couple windows. Generally, what happens is that we have windows that go all across, and then one or two of them are actually doors. It's supposed to create a sense of transparency. So we can actually establish all that here. Yes. Make sure to apply your framing because everything has to have a frame. And then use verticals to establish windows. All these are part and parcel to the framing of the building. Make sure that at your corner you have one as well. Like so. So all this space, all this little real estate you have up here, can be used for the sign. So let's see, for this one, let's get another line up here. Let's say this is a GameStop. It's probably reflecting off of the white on the jacket. a 10th. In fact, we'll just call it games. Here, I'm doing nothing different from when we were doing our name game project. Just a little bit of edge here to make it stick out from the building, like so. Now, what are some other things that you might see on a street like this, besides just the store? Well, besides buildings, I mean, I'm just talking street level. What else can we add here? We have a road that's here. But what goes across that road? Crosswalk. So starting from our central slab here, a crosswalk can be a dashed line or a solid line, it's up to you. Because we have two streets, let's establish two of these blocks. And this is where all those lines I was drawing come into effect. Because now I'm able to get a lot more done without having to add more lines as is. Now, that said, we now have a crosswalk. What do you need when crossing? Pardon? Okay, you kind of got muddled there. What was that? What do you need to make a crosswalk work? We have the road marker, but there's something else. Not cars. The cars are going to be done at a later date. So you push something before you can cross? The traffic lights. So, hmm? Simple. So I'm going to put my crosswalk right here. Now with the street light wouldn't be on the sidewalk. It would be off the off that bit of page. So really, it would be about here. Now we have a foreground element. So as with a foreground element, it's going to have a thicker outline since it's closer to the viewer. That one would just be going off the page. Oh, that's why this takes practice, like I've said. And we also added things like, say, You can add in manhole cover for the sewers. This road is a bit small, so I wouldn't say it's a two-laner. So I'd say everything here is one way. But we can label that's one way with just slight arrow making. Now remember, seldom is the road the same color as the sidewalk, so you can actually go ahead and do some light shading in. In fact, for the sake of cleanliness, you can even use a blending method, which would take your lines with it, so that's less for a race afterwards. And there you go, street. The beauty of it is that once you have this main model for your store, you can pretty much carry it on to the other buildings next to it. Now, in mine, I do have some taller buildings, in which case I can maybe put in some more windows, actual windows. But like with anything else, your windows have to abide by your vectors. And don't be afraid to add things between. And don't be afraid to add things between buildings, like, say, dumpsters, other doors. Air conditioning units, anything that you might find in a little shopping center like this. Now, when we come back tomorrow, we're going to go over, really this is just, we're going to be practicing this. So this is definitely not something that can be done in a day. For those at home, I'll have a prompt. For those that are in person, I can probably get a worksheet going for this, so you don't have to draw every single thing by yourself. And let's see how you... Okay, so here's my finished product, or at least mostly finished. Now, the worksheet I give tomorrow will have a few different setups, but I have all the faith that y'all can do this. Tomorrow and Friday will mainly be practice days, and then we'll get into cars next week, and then that will lead into your project. The cars project is not that hard, I assure you. And a lot of it is just still doing everything in perspective and then just making a background. But more details on that when we get there. All right, y'all have a good day. Good luck.